As the board members and administrators take their place at the dais, it is now time for the Howell Township regular meeting of the Board of Education and the public hearing for violence vandalism report. We should have a roll call, please. Mr. Gurman.
Here.
Dr. Love.
Here.
Mrs. Mangano.
Here.
Mrs. Malley called. She'll be about 10 minutes late. Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Moretti.
Present.
Mr. Sanchez.
Here.
Mr. Bongiovanni.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
The quorum is present. Shall we rise to salute the flag and then please remain standing for a rendition of the national anthem from our fifth graders at Ardena School, Jordan Krudyansky, Logan Manganza, and Alyssa Pratt. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleamings, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous heights o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare they once bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Way to go, Rams. And yes, I believe Ms. Mangano and Mr. Sanchez are going to join you.
Well, before we do that, sir,
Yes.
we normally don't take requests. But as superintendent and chief officer of this school district, I have honored one request.
Right? Okay.
Jordan's birthday. Yeah, girls.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jordan. Happy birthday to you.
Ms. Mangano.
Stick around, Rams. Hold on.
Sanchez? Jordan's a birthday girl. So Ms. Mangano and Mr. Sanchez, on behalf of the board, have certificates for the wonderful effort that the three of you performed here tonight with. So congratulations. Ms. Mangano, okay. Take like that individual on taking you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Always welcome to requests like that. Happy birthday, Jordan, from the Board of Education.
Thank you. Announcement by the President, as read by the Secretary. Adequate notice of this meeting, as required by Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, were distributed by the Secretary on October 11, 2017. It is now time for the Board to conduct an executive session.
Right. For those folks that might be the first meeting, we are going to go into executive session. We'll be returning to the dais, Mr. Sanchez, approximately. We have a heavy executive?
No.
Oh, very good.
Should be fairly quick.
Okay, thank you very much.
Please note the motion printed in the agenda this evening. The topics will be a settlement agreement and the HID report.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Move. Miller, second. You're in executive.
Board's in executive. Thank you. We are back from executive session. Mr. President, may I take the minutes, please? Mover and seconder?
Moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Miller, second by Ms. Mallon. Yes? Thank you. May I take it around, sir? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Ms. Mallon?
Yes.
Mr. Gurman?
Yes.
Dr. Love?
Yes.
Ms. Mangano?
Yes.
Mr. Moretti?
Abstain.
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes.
Mr. Bongiovanni?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Thank you. The minutes are approved. 8 votes in favor with the abstention noted for the record. The correspondence the board has received will be noted for the record. It is now time for the board president comments. President of the board, Mr. Timothy O'Brien, your comments, sir.
Thank you. I will be brief because tonight, obviously, we have some reports from our staff for this board. So, first of all, let me start by noting and welcoming our students who are here with us tonight. We're really glad to have them. And thanking again the young ladies who performed so incredibly for us earlier tonight. It really makes our night when our kids come out and share their talents with us. One of the things I'd like to mention before anything else is that next week this board will be convening down to the school board. We're looking forward to spending time with each of us. And I'd like to mention also that unusually we have over 4 presentations, right? Which is extremely unusual. It indicates the fact that Howell leads, and I'm very, very proud of this district and this team. And I'm looking forward to seeing us do just that next week in Atlantic City. And I'm looking forward to spending time with all of my fellow board members, both sharing what we know and seeing what others can share with us as well. So with that, tonight we have several reports out, and let me just preface those reports and talk a little bit about the fact that this district for a long time has been and always kept in the forefront the importance of culture. Our culture here in this district is one of seeking excellence, but at the same time also looking to help our children develop a well-rounded approach to life, which includes a strong sense of empathy, respect for others. And, we tend to take that for granted, but in this day and age, when you see so much lack of civility in public discourse at all levels of society, it's refreshing when you see our students engaging and demonstrating the very best qualities that we all aspire to. And that is deeply embedded in our culture here as a district and as a community. And this board is very, very supportive of that. So we look forward tonight to hearing more about the programs that we are currently engaged in and the initiatives that we plan to do in the future. So with that, Mr. Isol, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening, and thank you, sir. Welcome to our second October meeting. It's always great to see some children out and community members so that we can provide as much information and do the district business in a meaningful fashion. Each year, we are responsible to report on 2 particular things, and it's called the Semi-Annual Violence and Vandalism and Harassment, Intimidation, and Bullying Report. So this evening will be, and we have to do the first report by December 30th. Since October stands as a month where we really focus on this type of work, like the Week of Respect and some of the other programs that you'll hear about shortly, we always have traditionally done our update to the board and the community during the month of October, and we will keep with that this evening. At this time, I'll ask Mrs. Kellner, our Assistant Superintendent, who spearheads guidance and people services, to provide that report for you, and then introduce an added component this year that we have not traditionally done. We've done it on occasions, but we'll hear from some of our staff members in terms of our efforts to tackle this. Mrs. Kellner?
Thank you. The third week in October is designated School Violence Awareness Week in New Jersey. And in addition to School Violence Awareness Week, we also have the Week of Respect, which is October 2nd through 6th, and Red Ribbon Drug Awareness Week, October 23rd through 31st. Every district is required to plan activities to prevent school violence and to invite law enforcement personnel to be a part of that. We always work very closely with our SROs, now our LEO3s, and they continue to be highly involved with our district during this month. The board has received a list by school of the many activities that are occurring during the month. These include special training sessions on safety for students, drug awareness, bullying awareness, and bias prevention. In addition, the law requires that acts of violence and vandalism be reported out publicly 2 times per year. The information that I'll be providing at this time reflects the period January 1, 2017 through June 30, 2017. There were 10 cases reported in the area of violence, 5 cases of vandalism, 1 case in which weapons were involved, 0 cases of substance abuse, and 21 confirmed cases of harassment, intimidation, and bullying. There were 40 HIB trainings provided and 124 HIB programs provided during this time period. Okay, we can post as we have in the past, or share with you a more specific chart. I know in the past you've also liked the comparison between the previous comparable period, so I have that for you if you want me to share that now, and then we can also post it so that you can see it. So, violence in period 2 of 2016, 3 incidences, period 2 of 2017, 10 incidents, vandalism, 2 incidences, 5 in 2017, weapons was 1, and was 1 again in the same period for 2017. Substance abuse for 16 there were 5 cases and 0 in 2017. Confirmed hits, there were 12, and in the same period during 2017, there were 21. And Ms. Napoli and Mr. Bowen are going to talk to you a little bit more about that and what our response to that has been. And our HIB trainings and programs, 42 for the trainings, 40 in 2017, and the programs 121 and 124 in 2017. So those are kind of similar. Some things were landed in one category before and went to a different category, but that's pretty much it. So we can make this information available to you, but I think the presentation that they'll be doing for you will show you the response, based on the data, what response we are having, the information that we've gathered. Okay? So at this time, I am very pleased to introduce Ms. Napoli, who is our Supervisor of Guidance and the Vice Principal of Greenville School, and Ms. Corrigan Rabone, who is our District SAC. They are going to do a presentation for you on our HIB report and programs and what we're doing just district-wide in terms of social emotional learning for students.
For the benefit of the public who may not be familiar with the term SAC, can you just briefly...
Student Assistant Counselor for the district. So she plays primarily, she had been at the 2 middle schools more primarily, but she now is moving throughout the district because she's always been in the elementaries, but she's even taking a focus in the elementary schools this year, in particular 5th grade, but she's going to explain that as well with her involvement in the LEAD program this year. Okay?
Good evening, members of the Board of Education, Central Office administrators, and community members present. Thank you for having us tonight, presenting on not only the bullying law, but also talking about all the great things and programs that we're doing in the schools to teach our children the very character traits that Mr. O'Brien was speaking about: kindness, empathy, and so forth. Mrs. Rabone is going to lead our presentation with the bullying law, and she's going to talk about specifically what would constitute a confirmed bullying. Good evening.
The New Jersey Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights is a policy that was created in 2011 by Governor Christie to combat bullying in the public schools throughout the state. This slide and the next slide exhibit certain criteria for HIB. If you notice in the bold, some of the criteria is outlined what makes a harassment, intimidation, and bullying what we refer to as a HIB. It has to be certain criteria. Race, religion, and sexual orientation are three of the most popular that we see when we are reporting our HIBs throughout the district. Some of them, there's also other characteristics that's also involved, and other characteristics might rise to height, weight, and glasses, or somebody with braces if you're selecting a student for making fun of them to have braces. So as you can see, we have different types of bullying, and what we see is the most common form amongst our grades 3 to 8 is the cyberbullying because of misuse of technology and social media. More students have access to cell phones, and they can hide behind a screen and be able to send text messages or taking pictures of students and altering the photos and not realizing that that falls under the criteria of a HIB. So when we are getting reports, they are coming in more so on the cyberbullying versus the physical, verbal, and the emotional. Oh, for an example, thank you. For an example, sometimes parents and students get confused as to what would rise to be a HIB. So if there's a physical altercation, for example, if there's a physical altercation on a school bus or the playground, and race and religion and ancestry is not mentioned, that is not a HIB. That would be a student code of conduct. But once you start to bring in the characteristics, then you move forward to a HIB. So we have, this is who's involved in our cases. We have the offender, it could be a person or a group, we have the victim, and then we have the bystander. And the bystander could be good or bad. We teach the students to be upstanders, and if they see something, to say something, to report it. When I, myself, or Officer McBride are doing our presentations, we definitely go over this with the students to make sure that they are aware that even though if they are a witness to something, that they could easily be involved into the investigation. So this is our flow chart. When the initial HIB comes in, this is the process that we go through. I'm sure that you're all aware of how it flows. The ABS does the investigation, gives the report to the principal, and the final report goes to the superintendent, and like Mrs. Callender just did, and we report it out to the Board of Education. But if you look at the last box, the state reporting and safety team evaluations, I'm going to elaborate a little bit about that. Each year we have to meet with a school safety team. Each school consists of a school safety team, and we meet twice a year. It includes myself, the administrators, our anti-bullying specialists who are our guidance counselors, a parent representation, as well as a teacher. At that meeting, we discuss the school climate and the culture. The guidance counselors conduct focus groups with a select group of students, and they as well gather information from the students. The counselor then turnkeys the information to us at our school safety team meeting. We review HIB cases, where the HIBs are taking place, how we can improve. We talk about programs and assemblies. For example, our Red Ribbon, Respect and Violence Awareness. We discuss data, what we had from last year and what we're seeing this year. After each school safety team meeting, I gather the information and I have to input into a state database all the trainings and programs that we have conducted in our district. At the end of the school year, the state releases a self-assessment. That self-assessment consists of 8 elements. In those 8 elements, we have to score ourselves, and that is building based. The highest score you can receive is a 78. We do very well as a district as well as individual schools because of the programs and trainings that we implement all school year. Once the information is inputted into the state database and has been board approved, the state will give each school their score and then they give the district an overall score, and then that is posted on our district website. Okay. So Ms. Napoli is going to talk about some of the proactive measures that we do at the elementary school. Yeah.
Okay, so on this slide, there's 4 bullet points, and that doesn't look like many bullet points, but the amount of programs that Mrs. Rabone was talking about, and these are just very broad topics here. So for the first one, classroom lessons. School counselors are in classrooms teaching our students about all of those different, the pillars of character are posted up on the wall over there, on all of those different character traits. Especially this month, as Mrs. Callender was saying, we have our week of respect, we have our Red Ribbon Week and school violence awareness. Officer McBride and Mrs. Rabone, as well as the guidance counselors, have been going around to all of the schools teaching our students. They've been, Officer McBride and Mrs. Rabone have been going to all 3, 4, and 5 classrooms and teaching our students specifically about bullying this month and being kind. In addition, our school counselors are in our primary classrooms doing the same thing, and that's why you see that, that book there. I recently saw a great lesson, and at that level, the school counselors are bringing in picture books to start these conversations, teaching the students about differences and about bullying. As well as classroom lessons, each school has their own character education program. So for example, here at Middle School North and also Memorial, they have Positive Pause program, or one of the middle schools has You've Made an Impression. And what they do, they focus on those 6 pillars of character, and if a student is seen exhibiting one of those character traits, they're given that paw or whatever that token is for the student, and it's posted in different rewards are given for students. Other character ed programs in different schools are bucket fillers, Leader in Me at Ardena School and Taunton School. There's so many different programs in all the different schools. And another way we proactively address these character education programs is through our school-wide assemblies. There's BMX assemblies where they get a message out about kindness and bullying, to Lead You assemblies where they teach students about leadership and being a good friend. Also, Mrs. Rabone is going to talk more about specifically this year what's new and what she's doing with the LEAD program, which is Law Enforcement Against Drugs. That's new this year for our 5th graders.
So like Ms. Napoli said, myself and Officer McBride, we've been meeting with all the students in grades 3 through 8. We've completed grades 3 and 4. We do that by grade level, but this year we kicked off a new program, the Law Enforcement Against Drugs. Last year, Officer McBride and myself, we went for training, and we kind of followed a couple of school districts in Monmouth County to see how they implemented the program. The curriculum is evidence-based and it's offered in grades K through 8. We chose 5th grade this year, so we just kicked it off to start the month of October. We've already gone to two schools. Tomorrow we'll be at our 3rd. And the law enforcement, we selected 5th grade based off of reviewing our data from last year and looking at our HIBs. And we felt that 5th grade would be the best because they're the ones who are getting ready to transition to middle school. And with the tools that we're teaching them, it would be a great opportunity for them to have it when they get into the middle school. It's not only about drug awareness, it's also teaching about, making good decisions, managing your emotions, communicating effectively, and building healthy friendships. And after each lesson, there's a worksheet to go home to have that family connection as well, so that they're aware they could go home and discuss what they learned in the lesson for the day. There's 10 lessons that we have to complete by the end of the school year. Our first lesson is on goal setting. And then these are some of the proactive measures I take in the middle schools. So our big thing, last year we started to see a rise towards the spring in our HIBs in the middle schools. So we went to revisit the classrooms. Officer McBride and I used to do it during their phys ed class, but in the spring we went into smaller group settings and we met with each grade level by team in their science classroom, and we addressed the increase of HIBs that we were starting to see, and some were the bias crimes on the racial comments that were being made. Officer McBride discussed a lot on her end how she gets involved with the bias crimes, and then we brought in retired prosecutor from Monmouth County, Dave D'Amico, who also addressed our student body at both middle schools. We cover internet safety and social media. This year we had state troopers come in and meet with both of our middle school students and discuss about that. And instead of waiting for the month of October to meet with our middle school students, Officer McBride and I, we met the first full week of school in September at both middle schools and again went into smaller groups. Research says that the smaller group is a bigger impact on our students. So we target it right away. And then, like Ms. Napoli said, we all have school-wide assemblies. We have character education. And then the last one is our Heroes and Cool Kids, which is another program that I facilitate here at both middle schools, and I work with the high school on this. It's our 6th year bringing it here. Our high school students are considered the heroes, and our cool kids are our 6th graders. And they meet with our 6th graders 3 times throughout the year. The first lesson is on self-esteem, the second lesson is on our harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and then the third one is on alcohol, tobacco, and other drug awareness. We also added a little twist to that, and we took our high school seniors to meet with our 8th graders, and they do a transitioning to high school lesson with our 8th graders to prepare them. So,
I have a question. That's across the entire school student body, right? Every 6th grader has an opportunity to...
yes, we meet during their elective period. So they come 3 times throughout the year, and we typically do it during their elective periods. We always start at middle school north first, and then the high school kids go for their lunch, and then we end at south, and then they head back to the high school.
The next slide is basically just the simple things that we do to raise awareness and get the message out, such as have school spirit days. We have weeks that we celebrate, wearing crazy socks or whatever that is to raise awareness for students, and that's when we wear shirts like this. We have messages on our marquees, morning announcements, talking about great character, and poster contests. And again, those assemblies, are fit into that category as well as raising awareness. And of course, sending messages out on Twitter, getting the message out to students and parents. So the next slide is something new to our district this year. This is a new online program that we have. It's called Howell Schools 360, and it's for all of our 3rd through 8th grade students, because those are our students who have laptops, the one-to-one. So this is an online social emotional wellness program with hundreds and hundreds of different topics, any topic that you can think of. And what we're going to do right now is I'm going to take you through the video that is currently being seen by our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders this month. So, as an introduction to this program, our school counselors, and even Mrs. Rabone and Officer McBride, have been using a short video clip as a springboard for discussion in talking about bullying with the students. assessment for students. So they would go on to the program, there would be 3 or 4 questions on the pre-test. And then they would go through the tutorial, which this one happens to start with a short video, but they all don't. They might have a graphic or, something else. And in this case, this year, where it's new, our school counselors and Mrs. Ramon and Officer McBride are kind of taking the lead on sharing this program for the first time. But the students would click through, and it's informative, it gives information about the different types of bullying, and throughout it will ask questions for the students. And then at the end, there'll be more. So you see that the questions are embedded within. But then it talks about the different roles, as Mrs. Ramon was sharing before, with the bystander. We really try to talk a lot with our students about being a bystander and things that they can do to be an upstander if they're ever in a situation. So they would go through, and as you can see, there's 14 pages here, and at the end, it would be a post-test for the students. And later on, I'll show you kind of how we can retrieve that data to look at our students' progress and drill more into that data.
As you go along, you're collecting the data, which I assume for purposes of analysis is anonymous, right? It's not, you're looking at data trends. For the purpose of a meta, you're looking at the big picture to see trends among the student body.
Yes, we can, but you can go into specific.
So you also use it to help you.
Yes, and that's something too. And when it was shared with me by a vice principal using it up north at another school district, she was walking me through her data on a conference call one day and showing this student has repeatedly gone in and looked at this topic, whatever it was, anxiety. So that would prompt the school counselor to pull that student in and have a conversation with him or her.
Okay, so both macro and can be specific
Yes.
to that student. And this is something that parents have access to as well?
They can. At this time, we were just using it because it's still very new to the counselors and.
You're piloting it right now.
Yes. So the counselors will be using it on an as-needed basis on those situations such as, anxiety. If a parent is looking for resources, we're going to utilize that way for now.
Just, taking off my board hat and speaking with parents, it's very interesting in something, a resource like that you can work with your own child. Is something at some point, if it's possible, might be available.
The parent component is great too, because the parent videos are geared to the parents of how you can help your child through these. So they're not only able to see what their children see, but they can get tips and strategies for them in dealing with their child. Okay, so this next slide shows the curriculum within the program. So on this pyramid, on the bottom tier, it shows that's the tier for all students. That's all of those things we spoke that we want our students to exhibit, all of those traits, all of those skills, the social emotional skills that we want all of our students to have, empathy, kindness. So there's hundreds and hundreds of topics on that level, social emotional learning. And the next 3 slides are going to go through each tier of intervention or supports, if we'd like to call them supports. And then the purple is editorial topics, which they call, and that's a topic-specific lesson. And that, for example, that bullying one that we just watched, that was considered an editorial topic because it's focusing on bullying. So that's something that we're using this month for the topic of bullying. And then the top tier, which is for the most intensive of supports, is called the Back on Track, or it's also known as an in-school suspension component. Really what these are longer modules, and they have a reflection piece at the end, and I'll talk some more about those examples on that slide. So on the slide here, there's an example of just one topic for each grade level, and you can see that this is that bottom tier, the green, the social emotional skill building topics. Okay, and the whole idea here, what we would like to do is perhaps start doing a topic a month. In November, the guidance counselors and I are going to get together and we're going to talk about perhaps
you know, what topics we think are, you know, of most importance right now. We just learned how to create our own pulse surveys, so that could be more based on need of even an individual school rather than districts at large. So what we can do is push out a pulse survey to our students to see the kind of topics that they want to hear more about. Is it about making friends or conflict resolution or bullying? So we'll be able to address those needs, and we hope to push out one topic along to our students. And again, starting as early as possible with these topics. I'm at Greenville School, and right now we're going to start piloting in January at the K-2 level. The K-2 level is not one-to-one, it's teacher-led. So what that means is the teacher, the school counselor would project that tutorial and walk them through it. As a matter of fact, I had an opportunity today to walk a second grader through a tutorial who lied and stole something from another student. So, and it was very age appropriate on his level with a little character, and he had a pet, a iguana, and you know, we were able to talk about these important topics, but at his level through the characters in the story. And we went through the module together, and it took us 15 minutes to do that, and just hearing those terms of honesty and being dishonest and what that can do, it was really a nice conversation with the students. So we hope to continue that at Greenville this year and see how the students are responding to it also. So the editorial topics, which was at middle tier, the middle tier, again, that's the topic-specific lessons like the bullying. You can see some examples up here, life transitions. A child might not be dealing with divorce so well, so there could be a specific topic on that. Really, whatever the topic that you need is, it's in the library. So again, what we would like to do is push out those pulse surveys to see what the needs are. Not only, we don't want to only utilize this for the month of October, but of course going on throughout the year.
Can you expand a little bit on pushing out the pulse survey?
So we just, like I said, we recently learned how to create the pulse survey. So for the 3 to 8 students, the counselor will set up a window of time for the students to do the pulse survey. So when they open up their laptop and go to Suite, they'll just get those 3 or 5 survey questions. I think with the pulse, you have the opportunity to do more. And then that data, the counselors will be able to go in and look at the data for those. So they can attach it to a topic that they assign. So say we assign a monthly topic. So the first thing that will pop up is the pulse survey before they begin their tutorial on whatever topic. We talked about how grade 5 are utilizing this right now. And also, the counselors have small focus groups. And they could be meeting with students for a number of reasons. Difficulty transitioning to a new school. Could be of grade level. A topic could be pushed out to a 3rd grader who just transitioned from the primary building, or to a 6th grader who just transitioned from the elementary school. So those are some other examples of ways that it can benefit the students. And then finally, with the back on track components, here's some examples of topics up here. And a lot of these, if you think of them as, I guess, infractions, is either for students who basically do something wrong, but also there's a key way that we would also like to use it is it can also support the target in a situation. What's nice about this program is it also has topics like why some people bully or reacting to a bully, so that they're not thinking, why me, what's wrong with me? So we can address them as well through this component. And this level will mostly be utilized on individual or small groups when there is a need. So this page, it's difficult to see the data. screenshot, I have, for confidentiality purposes, blacked or whited out the names. But this, if you take a look, this is a student, this is a student, this is a student, and this is a student. These are all students in a particular class who participated in this bullying tutorial. So this student, for the pre-test, got a score of a 2 out of 4, and for the post-test, got a 4 out of 4. So this is the type of data that we can see. This student completed also with a great improvement. This student has not yet completed the tutorial. This student has taken the pre-test, and I can tell still needs to do the tutorial and the post-test. So then you see the little green picture on the side. And if you click that green picture, this is the class data, then you can get to that individual student. So perhaps there was a lower score for the post-test. So then if you can go to the individual student data, okay, and you can see, you'll be able to see which questions were incorrect for the student. So that's a way that we can look at the data. And some of them have some short answers, and like I said, some of the modules have a reflection piece, so you can really, see what some students are thinking in some of the tutorials. And if I can just show, go back to the actual site. So at a glance, I can go on and see, as I said, this is new and we're just starting to do it, but at a glance, I can just see the topics that are assigned and the percentage of students that are completing those topics. So you see Alder Delano School has 133 assigned topics, completed topics are 54. Okay, so this is just a general overview, but then you can drill down to the class and drill down even further to the students. Okay, so that concludes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'd like to ask if we could entertain any questions from the board. Any board members have questions on the presentation, anything else related to the program?
How are the parents accessing this if they need to, if the child comes home and is talking about a topic, can a parent access this to go over it with their own child at home?
We do have that component available, but we have not pushed that out yet. It's still new and we're just learning the ins and outs of the programs right now, but that is something that we really would like to do.
So
There would be directions for the parent on how to log in, what the username would be, what the password would be. Yeah.
So
Our
then-
goal was to have the staff use it this year, learn it, understand it, set up the modules, and then have the ability to push it out to parents next year so that everybody can be involved in it. But we only just got it in our hands in September, so we have some in-service days that the guidance counselors need to come together to work on this. So we're slowly rolling it out in the buildings. We're not at a level yet where we would be able to then support the entire community of parents using it, but that is the goal for next year.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you for your presentation. It's very exciting to see how we're using our one-to-one initiatives, and now guidance and the entire team in the building is now utilizing the technology in the classroom to further help our students. So, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Well, this presentation we put up on our website so that somebody who listens to this on TV can see. Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Isola.
Yes. And continuing with my report this evening, there are certainly items included for my opportunity where I update the community and the board. I would like the board to know, and we try to keep you as informed as possible of happenings and our involvement Mr. Bryan referenced our activity at the school board conference where we will be presenting. Last year, I had the opportunity, I shared with you, to sit on a panel for the ELL, English Language Learners Superintendent Summit Institute. And I was one of the panelists, one of 3 panelists. It was really a great day, a day of sharing and collaborating around the work for ESL programs and for, of course, our ELL learners, our students who have English as a second language. And as you know, we are a model program. Well, I'm pleased to inform the board and our community that on December 4th, we've been asked and selected to host this year's summit here at Middle School North, and we'll be doing that, and I'm really excited about that. It's going to bring educators from the region together to work on and share and collaborate on the work surrounding ELL students, and they're a critically important part of our population. So I'm pleased to be involved with this institute for the 2nd straight year now, and us being able to host it. So I thank you for your continued support for those opportunities. In the spirit of collaboration and continuing with that theme, and I think that you all know this of me now, I believe in collaboration and sharing practices with colleagues from around the area. Well, we had the opportunity to do it internationally once again. We had a delegation of 15 educators join us on Monday at Ramtown and Middle School South. It was really an awesome day where we got to share what American education looks like and compare that with our colleagues from across the globe. Quite informative for both groups, I think. They were quite impressed with what they saw. One of the things that I think stood out when we greeted our visitors and took them in and just kind of outlined the day for them, one of the first things that they were exposed to were our students in the Media Center at Ramtown, who had some makerspace in engineering and STEM. Our focus, we were asked to talk about our digital learning and future ready, since they realized, the coordinator realized we were recently recognized, as you all know, for being future ready. So the focus was on the STEM, the engineering, the future ready work, the digital learning. They were remarkably moved by the fact that they had access to our students, of course supervised, but that they were allowed to speak and ask questions of students directly. And they were very honest, and they said that would not happen in Taiwan. We would not allow you to speak directly to our students. I said, why? You know, those are the learners, that's what it's about. And if they can articulate to you what they're learning, we're doing a good job. I'm proud of that. And they were like, yeah, absolutely, but it's not part of their culture. That, you know, they feel that script and messaging for the overall school district is controlled, and again, cultural difference most likely, but that was one of the things they were most impressed with. And you've all had the opportunity to hear our kids speak about their learning, and you can imagine the in-depth conversation they were having with our visitors. So I was extremely proud of our school district once again, and I thought that was a source of pride for all of us, so I wanted to share that this evening. And the second half of that program, we'll have students visiting at the end of this month, and we'll have middle school students shadowing our students, and they'll spend a day in our school, 2 days in our schools, so they can see what American education looks like from a student perspective, and we'll have the opportunity to be buddy partnered with visiting students, and we'll get a glimpse through their eyes on what education for a student's perspective looks like in Taiwan. So again, a really great global opportunity for our youngsters and for our staff. As usual, and to no surprise to anyone at this day, our staff and our building leadership went above and beyond to welcome our visitors, and I'm confident that will be the case when our students come, and just so proud of the way they represented the work that's happening in our district. It's no secret or wonder that we were asked to be part of this program because they know that we believe in sharing, and they know that the high quality of education exists here through our staff and our building leadership. So we were very pleased with that. Certainly some more exciting news. I think Ms. George handed out to each of you, you may remember from the spring, classroom close-up, and Jay was in to talk about or to film a segment on our innovation lab and the work that's happening at Memorial Elementary School, and that is now airing, and the dates have been announced. They'll be October 29th and December 3rd. We tweeted that this morning, and we have given each of you where to watch and how to see that on those 2 days, those episodes on cable. And we'll certainly be sharing that out through communication processes with our community. But we're very proud that we were featured on an upcoming segment of Classroom Close-Up NJ. And again, the staff and the building leadership was such an important part of what was happening. And before I get to my second report of the evening, I'd like to thank everyone for participating and recognizing that October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And through a small effort of wearing pink this evening, it speaks volumes about the concern and the fact that this board and this community values the awareness of such items like breast cancer and other causes. And I told you the story last year, and it's moving. I'll just quickly say it again. When we did our pink out 2 years ago, we saved a staff member's life. And she doesn't make no bones about it. She said, because of the efforts and the awareness that we did as a school district, I went for my testing and was found a lump, and it was cancerous, and it was just early enough that, and she's back at work doing great, so we're really happy about that. So little things do matter, and I want to thank everyone for participating in this important message of encouraging breast cancer awareness to be front and center. And then finally, each year, students throughout our state participate in the park assessment, as you all know, as well as other assessments, and we are required to report our results in public meeting, as we always do. And it is at this time, or this normally around this time, that we do share the results with the board and with the community at a public board meeting. So I will ask Ms. Moore, the real Jack, by the way, Jackie Moore, you'll meet Jackie Moore later, just to tie Mr. Bongiovanni's remarks from last month together. But we'll ask Ms. Jackie Moore, our supervisor for federal state funding programs and testing, as well as professional development. She's prepared under mine, Mr. President, Mrs. Callender's direction, a presentation on our results of our work. So fill that up enough so Ms. Moore can get to the podium there and get started. So if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Isola. And hello, Mrs. Moore. It's nice to meet you. So I'm just going to flip back a moment. So as Mr. Isola had said, the park assessments are given to students in grades 3 through 8 every spring in the subjects of English language arts, ELA, and math. Previously, we had given a science assessment called the NJS Science in grades 4 and 8. That assessment is being discontinued this year, and there will be a new science assessment, details yet to be announced by the State Department of Education as far as that goes. So tonight's discussion will cover the park assessment from spring 2017 that was taken by students just this past spring in grades 3 through 8. So this is the third year that we have taken the park assessment. Our students have taken it. In the first year, if you remember, it was split into 2 sessions. Last year it was compacted, and that was continued again for the third year, which is a great reduction in testing time. And really the children are approaching the assessment with such a routine face that it's part of the course. It's another thing they're doing on their laptops. It's a digital environment, so it's no big deal to them, although we were all worried as adults as to how they would do. For them, it's old hat at this point. I don't think they could remember anything different than taking it online. So students in grades 3 through 11 throughout the state take ELA. Students in grades 3 through 8 take math assessments, and then once students progress into algebra, geometry, and algebra 2, they take an end-of-course assessment. Once a student is taking the end-of-course assessment, they don't also take their grade level assessment. So an example, a 7th grader taking algebra takes the algebra course test not the 7th grade math test. So, and I'll refer back to that in the presentation because it does impact the population of students taking tests at different grade levels. There are 5 performance levels assigned to the PARCC results. It's 1 through 5. 4 and 5 are the 2 that are seen by the state as meeting or exceeding standards. So the goal is to have students at level 4 and 5. Those are preceded by 1, 2, and 3. 1 is not meeting, 2 partially meeting, and 3 is approaching. So this chart that you're looking at represents what our data looks like compared to the state in ELA. If you look at the red rectangles, those 2 rectangles are circling the district results at levels 4 and 5 in the district. So you'll see very high numbers there. If you look all the way to the left, you'll see very, very low numbers over here, which is the level 1. Students there are really struggling to meet those standards. So the goal is to have higher numbers in levels 4 and 5, and we'll show you some composition of those numbers. So this chart represents grade level outcomes compared to the state side by side. So if you look at this, we're far exceeding the state in every grade level in ELA, sometimes by 10 plus percentage points. So quite a bit of a lead there. So what is the change over a 3-year period in the students in levels 1 and 2, the lower levels of proficiency, and the students in levels 4 and 5? So the goal is to have fewer students in levels 1 and 2. So when you compare the 3-year comparison, we've had that number drop over the 3-year period consistently. And in levels 4 and 5, we've had that increase consistently over the 3-year period, which is a very nice trend and one that we're pleased with. So when you look at math, this graph represents the same type of data that you looked at in ELA. The difference is when you look at the last, for Howell, 4 columns, grades 7, 8, and then algebra and geometry, those students are not necessarily all in the same grade level. So we do have 7th and 8th graders taking an algebra course. Those students would take the algebra assessment and not their 7th or 8th grade level PARCC. We have 8th graders taking geometry. Those students take the geometry assessment and not their 8th grade assessment. So when you look at those last 4 rows, the 7th and 8th grade numbers especially get very difficult to draw conclusions from because it's not really the full cohort of 7th and 8th grade students. And we'll see here again, district numbers that are very high in levels 4 and 5. And I'll show you compared to the state directly. You'll see a nice lead over the state as well. In some cases, an enormous lead over the state as well if you look at algebra and geometry. And to be fair, these comparisons for the state include high school students regardless of what grade they're taking algebra and geometry in. So a student may take up until their senior year, 11th grade, what have you, to take geometry or to take algebra. So those scores include those students. So it's the full gamut of students in those courses regardless of what level those courses are taught at. When we're looking at our algebra and geometry classes, we have students placing in those programs that we're very, very pleased with, very proud of. They're incredibly competitive with the state, even when we're looking at other systems, school systems that have similar programs. And again, we see a comparison with levels 1 and 2 over a 3-year period, and we're seeing those level 1 and 2 numbers consistently drop. And levels 4 and 5, we're seeing it consistently grow, and very strongly in many cases with double-digit increases over that 3-year period. So there is information available through our website for parents. These links are available on our website. If you go to our website and look at the PARCC link, it will take you to a page that has resources for parents. Everything that's on here, every URL that's listed up here is available right through there. But 2 of the resources that are available, there's one called Understanding the Score. that gives parents a lot of information about how to read a score report, what to do about the information you read on a score report, how to help your child, how to talk to your child about the score report. It's very, very helpful, and they also have translations in a variety of languages to help parents really understand what the results mean. And there are also PARC resources for parents right on the state DOE website. They've worked very, very hard at communicating correct information and clear and concise information for students and parents and educators. We also have, through our website, the Howell assessment notification, which is posted on our assessment page. That is available through the navigation strand district homepage to the curriculum menu to the assessment menu. And we also have our parent PARC page that has a lot of resources for parents on it. So now what are we doing with this information? We're very happy with the increases, and we're happy with those decreases in levels 1 and 2. So where are we at now? We're still working. We're not going to sit back on our laurels. We're not going to sit back and be content with where we are. We're going to keep moving forward with our students. So we have curriculum updates that have occurred and have all been put into place this September. We have a focus on personalized learning, which is going to be an intense focus for our November 6th in-service, as well as our CEU offerings coming up, and we're very excited about those. We've implemented Newsella that supports literacy across the content areas in the middle school grades. DBQ is a project for social studies. It teaches students the art of problem solving and investigative practices based on historical questions and wonderings. I really wish they had it when I was in school, because it's really phenomenal to watch kids work through those problems, and they're so motivated as they're researching and really getting very clinical about the history that they're reading about. And what I mean by that is they're teasing through it with a fine-tooth comb and really weighing what went on historically and the impacts of those things. We've updated our science curriculum to the next generation expectations, which are aligned with the newly named New Jersey Student Learning Standards for Science. And we also have our instructional coaches in place, who I have the pleasure just today of working with during a Jim Knight Coaching Institute. Jim Knight is an author and a very well-known coaching guru, internationally known. And I've worked with the coaches with his program with Rider University with a partnership. We're also partnering with Freehold Borough and West Windsor on that. They are just so inspiring. They want to get it right for staff. They want to get it right for the students. And they are incredibly excited about the learning they can do on November 6th, as well as what they can share on November 6th. So it was an inspiring day to spend with them. And what it's all about, really, are the staff and the students. And everything you've seen here is reflective of what's going on in these environments. So we have teachers pouring through results, professional learning communities, data teams, SCIPs, which are school-based improvement panels, pouring through the data, the progress, identifying needs, identifying opportunities for growth, and really working on personalizing the learning for each student, as well as personalizing adult learning for our own staff. So I am more than available to you should you have any questions. And I want to thank you for allowing me to spend some time with you tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. I'd like to see if any board member has any questions on the presentation tonight. The one thing that I do see, obviously, we see a lot of trying to understand how we rank everything, but what I really got from this report was a clear sense of significant progress in terms of movement from where we were in the last few years. Significant improvement across our student population in terms of their competency and understanding skills. getting, from 1 to 4 and 5, her assessment? And
Yes, that's a very good assessment.
how does the actual numbers that you see relate against maybe any internal goals you might have set? That may be a question of the superintendent, that's a question for you. But I mean, in terms of how we assess how we're doing, are we on track with our internal goals, ahead, behind? Where would you say, from the work that you're doing in the collaboration, the numbers that you're seeing, give us a sense of where we are in terms of our progress. Are we exceeding what you had initially anticipated as internal goals, or where are we?
So I am pleased with our progress, but you're kind of setting me up, so Brian, with all due respect, but I'm not pleased. We have work to do,
Sure.
period, end of conversation, right? Because we have kids in 1.
But
Kids in 2, we have kids in 3. Have we made progress? Yes. Have our upgrades in our curriculum work and our methodologies that we're doing, do I see an increase because of the fidelity of that workshop model in our literacy program is happening? Do I think the work that's happening in our math classrooms and the upgrades are paying dividends? Sure. Do I think RTI has started to play a major role since we started moving with a more clear focus in that area? Well, we always had interventions, but the way we have moved with the response to intervention, RTI, has started to show dividends. There's no doubt. In fact, I was at a professional learning opportunity on tiered systems of support that the state is pushing out. And when I was sharing our handbook, the group was quite impressed with the work that's happening. So do I think that's all positive progress? Absolutely. Am I extremely proud of that? Absolutely. Do I think there's work to be done? Absolutely.
And let me step back and reframe. What I'm talking about is we're making a major paradigm shift here, because in the past, we would look at these, metrics, based on, with letters, right? Almost like, looking at a clarity.
Yeah, right, so.
And, when I look back on those days, when we were getting reports back then, we were talking about we're a certain type of district based on this, and this is where we rank.
Right, so I believe you're referring back to the days of the factor groups.
Yeah.
And socioeconomics, socioeconomics play a major role in what a overall school district's test scores look like. And I'm being specific when I say test scores. And Bill Daggett is an international educational leader, recognized in multiple countries for his work, and he does a fantastic job of clearly articulating, if you want to see the best scores, go to the most affluent communities. But let's not be confused that that's where the best work is happening now. There may be great work happening in those communities. But the fact of the matter is, the end score may not really tell the story in terms of what's happening with children within a school community. Last year, we showed you some video clips, if you remember that. We were down at Southern when we did this update last year. You saw all the tweets and photographs of our staff's work around that, and the focus and the commitment they have to advancing each and every learner is fantastic. But we're often, in education, we often try to compare apples to oranges. And we try to make blanket statements that, well, every kid should do X. Well, sure they should, and that's the goal. However, not everyone enters the learning environment on a level playing field. So there's remediation that has to happen. And that's true of less affluent areas than Howell too. We must be respectful to the needs that exist in those communities. So absolutely, but the reality is we have always performed like back in the factor group days, certainly outperformed like the school districts, and I think that remains true, although they don't do that comparison anymore. But as I speak to my colleagues and share data, I'm quite pleased with what I'm seeing. And in the past, we would be a factor group and a half, basically, advanced. And that's something to be proud of then. But look, and I've said this to you, you've been a very supportive board about test scores. They're important. They're certainly an indicator of what's happening. But they're not the end-all, be-all. They are part of a larger story. And I think it's a good part. I think it's a nice chapter of our story.
As we go forward, I mean, one of the things that this board has done over the years is to partner with you and collaborate in terms of being able to look at the macro set of data that we can understand the impact of our policy decisions and your efforts working with your staff to accomplish those goals. And we've seen a lot of change. We've seen a lot of constructive progress, tremendous progress. key here is that we're integrating, we're using technology effectively with guidance now, bringing them into the classroom, as we talked about earlier. Everything's linked together, and that RTI model that you brought in earlier that showed the lattice and everything else. So it can get a little bit overwhelming sometimes looking at the various numbers of ways you can look at things. So when we go forward, trying to understand what the critical objectives are for you in terms of achievement, so you can measure success, and under the terms not necessarily of the factor group, but of what we're trying to do in personalized learning. That's the type of reporting that I'm interested in, and I know other board members are as well. And, based on what I saw here, we saw a lot of progress made from that data set of the park. And, looking forward to seeing what we're going to get from things along the lines of the guidance and what do they call it, evolution or evolve. That's also another important tool that's working. So with that framework, does that help a little bit in terms of clarifying? As we go forward, maybe bring back more?
Sure, and I've been committed, and our senior team and building leadership has been committed to sharing with the board and the community the progress when we're implementing new programs and things of that nature. But we've been very clear about looking at a student much more holistically in terms of their rank on a test score. And I think that's important. It should not be ignored. I've been very careful to walk that line closely because it is an important data point for us to use in a bigger picture. So I'm not being dismissive of the work that's happening in standardized testing or standard performance assessments that probably would be more accurate. But certainly the social and emotional part, we're seeing in the community, we're seeing more kids enter schools with anxiety issues and mental health issues that just cannot be ignored. And if we don't think that's playing a role in their learning, we're being naive. And in Howell Township, that is absolutely something that we continue to work towards tackling. Are we a perfect school district in that area or this area? No. When that happens, we think that we really need to change leadership because it's just not who I am. We'll never be perfect. I'll guarantee that. So if that's your goal, get rid of me. But if your goal is to have someone in this seat and on these seats that continue to strive towards that every day, wake up with excitement, then we're doing the right work. So this is important. It's a requirement to present it, and it is valuable information. But again, it's part of a bigger piece. Matrix such as what personalized learning looks, that's sometimes less tangible, but more meaningful.
Right.
Those are the things that we need to bring to the board, and through Education Committee, we've started doing that in terms of keeping the board and the committees and the community informed. Those are open public meetings. I think there's been a lot of nice work happening there under Dr. Lowe's chair of the Education Committee. So things in this district are moving forward. I'm extremely proud of the work, and just think about what's happening with our digital learning format that has been really a game changer, quite frankly, in my opinion. When we talk about access to learning, and I say the word access, I think it's accessibility of the factors that we bring to kids with needs and needing access to curriculums, the extent that this school district goes to do that. We should be extremely proud, but we should also recognize there's still work to be done.
Well, they say pursuit of perfection results in excellence, right? You never quite get it. Yes?
Okay, for the level 1 and 2s that we have, the number is decreasing. Is there any way to measure the percentage of those children that just don't test well, that they just don't take tests and they can't, maybe, following up with a paper test? Because some kids struggle just with the fact of testing in standardized form anyway.
Sure, so we don't break that out, Ms. Malley. We have not identified that. I think it's a really good point, but it also triggers a thought in my mind as you say that. A lot of this data in a lot of districts is skewed by the amount of test refusals we've seen statewide. So some of our brightest students and some of our struggling students have opted or have refused, to use the correct word, testing. So there is a component of this information that's missing. to your point, and then to further say, I don't think, in no way, and I know that Ms. Moore, you've grappled with the data much more intimately than I have. I don't think we have identified this child as a problem test taker and what you would. Now, we work with students on assessments all the time, so we do give them strategies for struggling through and having endurance and things of that nature. So we try to build stamina that could be used in grappling with complex texts, but also help on an exam, right? So there's some overlap there. But uniquely to your question, no, we have not identified those students and have isolated them for informational purposes at this point. Yeah.
Speaking to what you were talking about when you were talking about the scores and kind of combining with that question, when I look at this report, and certainly please don't ever get anybody get me wrong in terms of, I recognize the numbers and how significant and nice they look. The piece on here that really touches me, and I think especially because we've sat in so many committees and listened to reports, is when you talk about the actions and you talk about the personalized learning. And the reason for that is it is the strong argument for the discussion in regards to student achievement versus student growth. I would much rather know that a child, even if they were in the 1 or 2 group, had a significant amount of growth over the course of the year, maybe remained at 2, but where did they start from? And you know, again, I've sat in the education committee for long enough now to have heard so many different presentations about our student growth and the personalized learning and the evaluations we do on that. I think what will always be a problem with scores like this is, did Bobby have a headache that day? You know, was Susie suffering from allergies? You know, did something happen the night before and they didn't get enough sleep? So these will always be a snapshot of how did the student do that day. I would much rather, and again, don't get me wrong, I love the fact that we have high scores. I'd much rather hear a presentation, and we've heard it before, about here's what we're doing with our children, especially with the RTI programs and the personalized learning, to make sure that we're having our children grow as opposed to how high did they jump that day.
And that's a great point, Mr. Bongiovanni, and I certainly appreciate your remarks this evening. I think, as you were speaking, Mrs. Callan and Mr. Preston and myself, were just, you know, some of those photographs that you saw there, those tweets and still photos, the reason why we included that is because those are our school data teams or SCIP teams that are grappling through many points of data so that we then could look at a student's whole picture and make adjustments to the learning or to the instruction or to the child's needs. And through the RTI process from there, and INRS if necessary. So there's many mechanisms in place. One of the greatest movements that we've experienced, and it talks about, and I know we've been going a while, so I apologize, but it talks about the district's commitment to go beyond compliance. So we were compelled by law to do PLCs, professional learning communities. We must have a SCIP. We must have a district advisor, the act. We must have all these things. And in most recent years, we've been able to harness them. And in fact, Mr. Preston and I were speaking about that at the presentation down at Atlantic City, to harness those in a very concise and connected way to yield outcomes for student learning. And we no longer just meet to meet compliance boxes and check things. We meet with purpose. And the staff have been outstanding in this area, and they recognize the importance of it. And it is worthy of celebration. And I know in Howell Township that process is happening with fidelity, and we should be really proud of that. I couldn't speak to other school districts, many of them are doing that, but that was not the case when this looked at another, you know, state initiative that we had to be compliant to. Well, and I say it all the time, we will go beyond compliance. We'll figure out what has to be done, and then we'll make it ours and make it meaningful. So we're very proud of the work that's happening, to your point, Mr. Bongiovanni, and I agree with you. One data point important, but it's those all the other data points that help tell the whole story. It makes a snapshot of movie picture.
Thank you so much for working so hard to not only give our children all these opportunities to learn and grow, but to use this information to try to figure out how you can do better. I am just struck about just one element of the report Ms. Moore gave about our students who are taking geometry or algebra first and then geometry, and how we so far surpass state standards there. And I'm just curious, even at this point, whether you can make some assessments as to why that's the case. Two things that come to mind, and I'm just asking if you see any correlation. One would be this district for so long has had a gifted and talented program, a self-contained program, and I'm wondering to what extent and how many of the students who have taken these programs have shown these results, taking algebra and geometry, and again to pick up on the personalized learning in general. And how much we're doing there to identify students' potential earlier on.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Garman. Specifically, the geometry scores that you see, that is the GED track. So our gifted and talented middle school students take algebra in 7th grade, and they take geometry in 8th grade. So that is a small sampling of our strongest students, hence the fine results, right? Okay, why so far superior to the state? Well, always very transparent. That geometry is generally a 10th grade class. Every 10th grader, I apologize, most 10th graders take that. So for a high school issuing a geometry test to the majority of 10th graders, it's the whole gamut of math students. There are some struggling students in there, and there are some very good, strong students in there. For us, it's our strongest population of math students. So we better be beating the state standards or levels, and we are. And not only that, but when we do compare to like school districts in terms of middle school programs, our scores remain very strong. So we're very proud of that. The second factor there is we are a minority in terms of offering geometry even to our gifted and talented students. So the flip of that needs to be examined and said, what does that impact our 8th grade scores? Well, if you look at our 8th grade scores, they don't look as dominant as some of the others. And when you look at the almost probably 50% of our kids, thank you, Ms. Moore, for the nod of acknowledgement, my statistic was close to correct. Approximately 50% of our students are not taking the 8th grade assessment. 50% of our strongest math students are actually taking specialized algebra or geometry. So that skews that number downward, and that's logical though. So when we look at that, it's not alarming. It says we have to do some work there, no doubt, but again, that's something that is something to be very proud of and celebrate, but it also gives us a reason to now hone in on those others. Yes.
That's comment after the first one. Because, you know, they're great scores, but, you know, and it's not a problem, it's never going to change. The problem I've always had is just one way of learning. So to your point, we're only demonstrating paper, pencil, computer, whatever you want to call it, one way. We know our children and us as people, we do all kinds of ways. There's several ways to be able to have students and adults demonstrate what they know and they're able to do. So I think for us, while these are great scores, we're doing some things now with the passion, play, and purpose to have kids create, develop, rap it, build it, dance it. Those are the areas that are never measured on the state test. So, yeah, like you say, great to keep going there, but that's just the only way right now. I don't think it ever will change, but we as a district are doing some things to pull those other things out that'll never be measured on the test, but are equally, maybe more important, to be able to give those other multiple opportunities to demonstrate what I know and I'm able to do.
I think this has been a great discussion. Is there anyone else that you we've been very busy up here on the dais, and but Mr. Sanzak, any other parts of your report, sir?
Well, that concludes my report.
Well, with that, I would like the indulgence of the board, since we have some of our younger students as guests tonight. My able vice president pointed out to me that we do have to let them get home and do their homework.
I texted Mr. Isola earlier.
I'm sorry.
And I was-
Knowing these students, they probably already knocked it off, but,
I was,
all right. But either way, out of respect for our young guests.
I was going to ask that we move the public comment up ahead of the committee reports. Also, I would like to ask, once we open it, that we ask for the first group of questions to be in response to the HIB public hearing and the presentation, and then go into general comments after that. So,
Sure, but we will, I think, give the floor first to our youngest guests, if they prefer to make it.
at your direction.
All right, would that be acceptable to the board? Okay, very good. Well, with that in mind, I would like to welcome any of our young students who would like to speak tonight, and we welcome you and look forward to hearing you. Yes, can we provide them with equipment? The way that we normally do this is you get to introduce yourself, state your names, and in this case, what school you're at, and where you're from, okay? Thank you. First names only, that's all we need.
I'm Kendra. I'm Mariah. And I'm Hannah.
Welcome.
We're all from Ardena School. Hi, my name is Hannah Perlman, and I'm a 5th grader in Ardena School. My friends Kendra, Mariah, and I had talked about stopping the bullying and replacing it with being kind to each other. I'd like to tell you about how students treat each other at school. I've seen kids being nice to each other, and I've seen kids making fun of each other. It's so important that we just learn to appreciate and respect each other. Choose to be nice, choose to be kind, choose to be respectful, and choose to be accepting. It's not that hard. I've been going to Ardena for 6 years. The 7 habits have been incorporated into our daily routine in school. Not only are we taught to use it in school, but also apply it in life as well. The habits have been effective in my life, both in school and out. I'm independent, I work well with others, and I think before I do anything. If we incorporate a program that focuses on being nice to each other, we can all learn to become more tolerant and accepting. I don't think we should focus on what not to do, like anti-bullying. I think we should focus on what to do, like choosing to be nice. There's a program called Choose to Be Nice. It's very simple and it doesn't cost anything, but the reward would be immeasurable. It can have the same impact as the 7 habits, both in school and in life. There's a lot of negativity going around in our society today. Change starts here, change starts now, and change starts with us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Kendra Thor. I'm a 5th grader at Ardena School, and my friends Hannah, Mariah, and I had a discussion about how to put an end to bullying. It is really important for bullying to stop because it causes kids to get hurt. It is better for people to respect each other rather than hurting each other. This is why we wanted to introduce ChooseToBeNice.com. This website doesn't cost anything but can affect everybody's lives. There is a lot of bullying around the world and we feel this website may be able to make a difference. With this website we can change the world.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education and Administration. My name is Mariah Mangano and I'm a 5th grader at Ardena School. My friends Hannah, Kendra, and I have been talking about how we can make positive impact on bullying in our schools. Bullying is everywhere, trust me, and it needs to stop. People every day are getting bullied and some might tell someone while others wouldn't tell anyone and hold it in. I have seen my brother being bullied in the past because he has autism. We at Ardena are leaders, and we don't want anyone in our school, or any school for that matter, to feel they have to tolerate bullying. The Choosing to Be Nice campaign is a very simple way to just show that being nice can change a person's whole day. So if you see someone being bullied, please tell someone you trust. Let's be the leader. Hold on. There should be zero tolerance for this. Let's be the leaders we are and show the other school districts that we have what it takes and that we choose to be nice. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mariah, and thank you all of you for that. Very, very much. Yes, Mr. Isola.
Thank you, ladies. Next year, we're going to not provide the data for you, just let these young ladies speak. I think we're doing a pretty good job.
I am very interested to see if, I know we allow each building and the leadership to work with our students, right? So perhaps Ms. Rambo and Dr. Bennell, others could work with these young ladies. They are obviously leaders, and they have put a lot of thought and effort into this. So I encourage you to continue to lead, to continue to be involved, and we appreciate your voice. And wherever we as a district can support and help you, we're there. So, Mr. Isola, I'll leave it to you the appropriate way to work with these young leaders. Sure.
We took a note of the program you referenced, the .com that you gave us. We'll take a look at that. We'll make sure Mrs. Napoli takes a look at that and see if it is appropriate and it has to be vetted out, as all things do, right? Make sure just because you hear something, it doesn't mean it's the right thing, right? But it's coming from a pretty good source. So we'll take a look at that and see if there's a place for it in our school program. Because it all helps. Every little piece we can do to stop one more incident of bullying will be meaningful, right? So thank you all for being such great leaders and such great young ladies.
Thank you.
The socks, thank you. Yeah, sure.
Let's give them a round of applause. All right?
Yeah. It's October. You have until June. With the permission of Mr. O'Brien and the rest of the board, I'd love to invite you back near the end of the school year to tell us if you've seen any changes, if you've had any success spreading your message. Thank you for bringing it to us. We love to hear student voices, and we'd love to know where it goes from here.
Terrific. Thank you. Anything further on that? Well, in that case, ladies, we really appreciate what you've done tonight. Thank you for being our guests, and we look forward to hearing more from you as you go forward. And absolutely. And I know as you go off to middle school, you'll take that spirit of leadership and kindness there as well. So thank you. Mr. Isola, I think we're good.
May we just go right in and continue the public portion for the public hearing and the first public comment?
Absolutely.
We already started, but the Howell Township Board of Education determines the public portion may last 45 minutes. It will be conducted in accordance with bylaw 164.1. Individuals may be limited to 3 minutes each. You will be the officer, Mr. O'Brien, president on time and decorum. Are there any comments at this time? Beginning with the HIP report. Seeing none, are there any general comments? I'm sorry.
Oh, we have one question for the HIP. Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
The other Miss Jackie Moore.
The other Miss Jackie Moore.
Really?
Yes. I have a HIP question, and I also have two other questions on two different topics. I wanted to know if the board could explain what is the due process for HIP. Specifically, do the parties have an opportunity to be heard, and do the parties receive notice of the hearing?
I think we should direct that question to Ms. Callen, please.
You're speaking of the parents or
both, all the parties involved.
So when there is an accusation that involves harassment, intimidation, and bullying, the principal immediately takes the information, notifies the parents of the target and the victim that an investigation is going to be taking place. And at that time, there is no interaction or sharing of information with the parents. The investigation takes place within 10 days. The information gets sent up to the superintendent's office, gets reported to the board. At the next board meeting, the board members would vote to affirm the results of the HIP cases that had been heard. And at that point, within 5 days after that board meeting, the parent would get the results of the investigation, whether it was or was not determined to be a HIP. And and then the parent has the opportunity, if they wish, to seek hearing before the board if they don't agree with the outcome of that HIP investigation, and then they can be heard before the board in an executive session regarding that incident.
And just to further clarify, when you say what is the due process in a HIB case, we are talking about a allegation of HIV under the legislation, under the law, so that necessarily may not include conflict, right? So when it's an actual allegation of an HIV under the law, and these are statutorily obligated, this is not a decision process made by this board, that the law clearly states those are the timelines and the process, and we are compliant with that. So again, specifically talking about harassment, intimidation, bullying under the code.
Okay, I was just wondering about how the parties would have an opportunity to be heard, but you said it happens after determination.
Right, because the parents don't get information about the case until it's already been brought to the board of education. And then after all of that is when the information goes home to the parent, just explaining the nature of the incident, the result of the investigation, and what remedial action was taken.
Okay, thank you. May I proceed with my next? Okay, thank you. My non-hit.
Are there any other comments on the public hearing? If you just indulge me for a minute, we'll finish that. Seeing none, go. No. I believe you're up again. I just needed to close.
Welcome back, Ms. Moore.
Good evening, everyone.
Say your name for the record.
Sorry, my name is Janet Moore. This is a part question. Can an 8th grade student opt out or refuse to sit for the park exam?
Mr. Sullivan.
No, they can't opt out. There's no such thing as an opt-out in our state. But a student may determine that he's going to refuse an assessment. And I'm being technical for a reason. I don't mean to be elusive by no means. So there's no option. We can't say, I don't want to opt out. Theoretically, we receive letters from parents that say, my child will refuse the test. That's fine again, but that child must really refuse the test. We have a respectful policy practice about that. We will not do sit and stare. So we won't say, if the child reports and says, I'm refusing the park, we don't put them in front of the computer and say, oh yes, you're going to take the test. That's counterintuitive to taking care of children. However, we do encourage compliance with the state requirements. It is part of the state mandated delivery for a school district to deliver that assessment. But it is, so again, no right to opt out, but there is a pathway for a student to say, I am refusing the test. Obviously, for a 3rd grader, we recognize a parent would be sending that letter in, and we'll take receipt of that. The parent may get a phone call from the principal, or vice principal, or one of us saying, hey, well, tell me what your concern is, let's talk through this so we can understand each other. But at the end of the day, a child is maintained in a respectful, meaningful environment throughout the day.
Thank you. And as a follow-up, how does if a child refuses, then how is he assessed?
Not through the park.
Not through the
Not
park.
through the park. We have other, as we talked about, there are other mechanisms that we use for local assessments.
Okay.
For example, Star Renaissance is a test that we utilize here. It's delivered in-house. It is for our purposes. It's not reported to the state. There's teacher assessments. There's a multitude of ways to evaluate a student's progress so that we can be informed about the decisions we make to assist them in learning, right? So that's it. And that's a good point, Worthy. And sir, I apologize. We normally don't do Q&A. I think I was directed to, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, so I apologize. Normally it's comment, but since it's a small crowd and we've already been in a long meeting here, might as well.
We blended our public hearing.
Yeah, so I apologize. But, so Mr. Preston whispered to me, rightfully so, the state recently passed policy that would require students who sit for park to be eligible for their high school graduation. So there's some important information there, and I can share that with you directly, Ms. Moore.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, and the lit test too, yeah. But, Teresa, will you just make sure that I have Ms. Moore's contact, and we'll get those requirements directly to your inbox so that that can be helpful for you to determine that. And then any follow-up questions, just feel free to give us a call.
Thank you. And one final, and this is a comment, not a question. At the last meeting, there was some conversation about Board of Ed members attending PTA meetings. Our Madam President, Donna Carnavale of the Middle School North PTA, wanted me to relay that we welcome Board of Ed members at our meetings. Good night.
Additional comments?
Yes, we have.
Hello, my name is Christina Howell. Some of you may know me. I'm the CEO and founder of Rise Anti-Bullying. We counsel children on how to deal with bullying, how to rise above it, and we also help fund and research school policy. So I also wrote a book called Anti-Bullying 101. It actually just went #1 on barnesandnoble.com, so I'm really excited about that. And thank you. And so I'm actually on the Community Interaction Committee. I'm actually just And, you know, I went to Howell schools my entire life. Elementary school, middle school, high school. So I don't really think it comes to, when you think about being an expert in something, of course you guys sit on the board, but I'm essentially the product of what you guys do. My experiences, my peers' experiences. Wouldn't you agree? Yes or no? Yes? No? Anyone?
We certainly think each board we're cumulative effect, many boards over many years.
Okay. I'm just saying that would you agree or would you not agree that a student's experience, there's second to none of having someone here for essentially the 13 years I was there, correct? It's just a question. It's not
excuse me.
I really can't hear what you're saying. You're talking so far away.
Ma'am.
Yes?
So you understand, relax a little bit there on that, but this is public comment.
Yes, I'm right. I'm going to my comment.
Right,
It's
we don't normally engage in an interactive dialogue at this stage.
Okay, well, one person said a Q&A. It was just
No, I understand.
question.
We had a public hearing, but we blended.
Okay.
But certainly,
Well,
we're happy to hear what you.
All right, well, I'm on the Community Interaction Committee.
Yes,
And
thank you
I
for
went,
your service.
and I've been to a few of those. And the thing is about those is that you can say your opinion, right? But I don't think that the board is being responsive enough. I went to one meeting and I just said my opinion about something, and it was a private meeting, but I was just met with essentially rudeness, and I wasn't taken seriously. I was asked about my credentials, my qualifications. I was bullied 13 years in the Howell school system. For me to come back and speak to you guys in this way now, to be confident, to be here, to be present, I thought that was pretty brave on my part, and I just felt underappreciated. I'm not saying that you have to take every single opinion of mine or any of them, but I just felt that I was disrespected. So my comment here to you all today is that I really think that the Interaction Committee meetings should be fed live through our online feed for other citizens to see, because I kind of can see why some people don't come to these meetings. I think one person, Angel Sanchez, said the public doesn't come. I can see why now. Okay, I'm not saying every single one of you, just one or two of you, but there's somebody on this board right now, table, who's watching a black and white movie and surfing the net as we are speaking here today. So I'm just saying that you need to be more transparent, and I'm also saying that you just need to be more responsive. People come out, just listen to them. You don't have to agree with them. You just have to be respectful when people come out. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your comments with us. Anyone that serves as a member, citizen member committee, we respect their service and time. And we thank that. We certainly do want to hear what people have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
If anybody wants to serve on any information, start the meeting, it's time to start it, about to know the meeting. And
Certainly, I think, in the appropriate forum, we can take a look, and always happy to investigate and see about how we can make a progress. So that's, it's a very serious issue. We want to make sure we're
I don't
public.
think anybody should be really asking about qualifications, or their background, resume,
And
nonsense for people to comment or, start to.
this is actually news to me, and I'm sure to many members of the board, because, and I think I would like to ask that maybe, we have this conversation in the appropriate forum, look into what happened and see if we can improve the process. So understand what happened first and then see if we can improve the process. With that, yes, Mr. Clerk.
Yeah, so Mrs. Catalano is a fine member of the community interaction. In my presence, I've always felt that there's been respectful dialogue. In fact, it was Mrs. Catalano that requested, to enhance our ethics in terms of what we're doing in terms of bullying and opioid crisis. And it was in response to her request that I replied, Ms. Rabone, I apologize for saying required, but I felt that strongly about the citizen's request. And we presented, I think it was the September meeting at Middle School South Community Interaction, an entire presentation to make sure that our citizens were informed, because I was concerned about Mrs. Catalano's not point of view, but point of view is a point of view, but I was concerned that she was concerned about what was happening. Therefore, I wanted to make sure we provided all that information so that we can continue to have an informed dialogue. Unfortunately, I don't think she was available to come to the meeting. She was not present. And then certainly we continued to talk even last night at our community interaction meeting about HIV came up. Ms. Moore was present, and we had some good dialogue at that meeting, unless I'm conflating my meetings and it was the PTO meeting, but certainly even at last night's interaction with the community, we went to continue to do that. So I feel terrible. I wish she would have shared with me personally, the superintendent, that she felt that way, because I certainly would have tried to have a deeper understanding of her concerns. And I think that our administrative team has been and continues to be very responsive to this community's concerns and needs. So I with great respect to Mrs. Catalano, I say that is concerning to me. I'd be happy to have a follow-up conversation as the board's.
I would ask that the chair and the administrative liaison, in this case yourself, Mr. Ursula, reach out to Ms. Catalano and have a good discussion and try to air out what it is that we can do to help bring us together on this, because I think obviously community member service is important. We have to respect that. Most of us start up here as community members, citizen members. But regardless of whether she's a member of the committee or not, she's a member of the community. And obviously what she shared with us tonight was important to her, and we need to be responsive to it.
I'm sorry, when she was speaking, I didn't understand it. That's why I told her to go closer to the mic. What committee was she referring to?
Community interaction. So bottom line is,
I've been at many different committees. I've never heard anybody ask for qualifications. Is that what she was saying? She was asked for her qualifications?
Well, I think the best way to resolve this issue is to do it in the appropriate forum, which would be to have that conversation and to work towards understanding and mediation. So maybe not here at this stage, but certainly I count on Mr. Sola and Mr. Bongiovanni to make that effort if they could. Thank you. It's important. So I'm hopeful that you'll be able to reach out to her. And
I would be happy to spearhead that.
Yes.
Along with Mr. Bongiovanni. And just so the record is reflected, again, the only recall that I have, and it was said here in public comment, so I think it's important for the reflection to take place. Mrs. Catalano stated her credentials, and I know I personally asked about that because I was impressed about her work post high school. I don't think that was an attempt, well, I know it was an attempt on my part to be vetting out her credentials, but rather certainly to understand them because she had cited them. And again, communication is tricky sometimes. So if it was on your superintendent's shoulders that feeling was had, I'll make sure I clarify that with Mrs. Catalano, who once again is a valued member of our community.
think it's a great case in point illustration in terms of, this is the first time I've ever had public comment of this nature, but I think it's important for us to engage and to resolve it. So, however we become aware of the situation, how we respond to it is what's important. And so I look forward to that resolution. Thank you. On that note, I believe that concludes.
Are there any further public comments? I don't believe so.
Thank you.
Public comment may be closed.
Right. We now have the business of committee briefs and
Yes.
I believe. So I believe I started on my right the last time. Did I not miss it? I did. So I'm going to start and look over at our policy chair, Mr. Garber.
We don't have any date set for the next meeting, but we'll contact all of the members of the committee soon, and we're thinking about a date in late November or early December.
Seems to be difficult to get the committee meeting.
Well, at this point, I mean, we have the school boards, and then we also have the NJA. There's a week, there's break, and so we're working on it. And again, the reason we waited from the last meeting was because the leadership team of our superintendent and the top administrators wanted to look at some of these things. And of course, we do want their input before we come up with any suggestions on the committee level.
Excellent. So in other words, basically the background research on the agenda had to be done first. Okay, that explains it. Okay, thank you. Very good. Mr. Burke, yes.
We met on October 12th. We discussed, Mr. Adeline discussed the different types of drill training and ways of notification in the school has been done. He also mentioned that there's a new report. It's called the After Action Report, which will be set up for the SLEO 3s. When they take an action, they're going to fill out a report that's going to be reviewed. So they have a tracking of that. He's also drilling the training for the faculty staff was discussed again. We constantly are going over our procedures on training staff and faculty on that. Mr. Sanasak discussed the building updates on the fire and lockdown security. Mr. Sanasak again reported that the SLEO 3's program is going well. We're hiring additional recruits. It's underway. Ron, you want to say anything about that?
There were interviews took place. They're in the process of going through at the police department level the other clearances, the psych and the medical and everything, and we hope to have good news that we're adding in the very near future. As soon as the chief clears them, we'll be advising the committee and of the full board.
And also, we're going to have a multiple department bus accident drill will be taking place at Middle School South on the 21st of this month. It's going to be a multi-department meeting, fire department, our facility, and so forth. Ron, you want to?
Sure. Yes, the Ramtown Fire is taking the lead. Several other fire departments in town, as well as Brick Heavy Rescue, will be involved. The board donated a bus on the last agenda. They're going to be tipping that bus over to dramatize a bus accident on 547 is the hypothetical location. A local Boy Scout troop is going to provide for victims. It's this Saturday, by the way. At 8 o'clock at Ramtown Fire is the safety meeting, and then we'll go on from there. Several of our administrators and nurses will be there. We're going to go through the process of using the emergency cards and notification and those kind of things. They're actually going to perform the rescue and do a treatment triage scenario. They're going to use Ramtown Fire as the hospital. The Kosminski Way and part of Ramtown Greenville Road will be closed. It should be very informative, as well as test and make a process of our communication with fire, first aid, and the police. So I'm looking forward to it as a learning experience, and thank you to the safety committee. I think it should be a very good day.
And a couple of weeks later, we're going to have a tabletop?
Yes, what we're going to do as a district is once the emergency response gets done and the process of getting the children to a location, whether it's a hospital notionally or whether it's to a reunification center. That's why many of our administrators are going to be there. We're going to then take that and test how we would notify parents, release, reunify, deal with the mental health component, whether there be any trauma, deal with any concerns that they have while still, and we'll throw in a few injects for the media and have a few reporters try to be a pain, and so it should be good. But we're going to take that further once the emergency services roll out. We're going to do that as a tabletop in, I don't know, about 2 weeks, but in the near future. As Mr. Gurman said, we have a pretty busy November and December, so it may be as late as January, but we'll be talking about that at the safety committee level.
The minutes for August 1st were approved. We don't have another date set for our next meeting, but it will be forthcoming. The advocacy committee has not met, but we were talking to the meeting with Senator Thompson and discussing our different issues. I think one that Mr. Miller had brought up, we had discussed that with him. I don't know if we want to talk about that now or not.
This actually fits tonight because we did discuss HIP. Currently, the HIP regulations are at the state board for readoption, and they're going to make some changes. One of them is if we send a student out to a school for disabilities, and there you happen to have a HIP over there, when the parent goes to appeal, they're not going to appeal to that school, they're going to appeal to our board. We actually have to hold the appeal here and here, and we have to now look at the policy of the school that we have sent the child to and try to base their decision and try to see if we agree with their decision. So this possibly could cause some type of legal problems if they now go to try to appeal our final decision. So this is something that we need to keep a look on. So I asked Mr. Moretti and Central Administration when they went over to discuss that settlement, because that financially hurt the district if we start having these appeals coming out of the schools of disabilities.
One of the other items we had discussed was the SLEOs. That program right now is set up where it's only for municipal police officers and state police officers, state troopers. What I'm looking to do is discuss with the Assemblyman is the fact that we increase that to cover other law enforcement officers. We're trying to look for a language that is encompassing. For example, law enforcement officers that are police training commission certified. That would cover a multitude of officers instead of just one or two. This way we would have more candidates to select from.
Thank you, Mr. Moretti. In my role as Township Liaison, I had the pleasure last night of attending the Town Hall meeting where the SL3s were sworn in. I was accompanied by several board members, Ms. Mangano, Ms. Malley, and Mr. Miller. And the Chief of Police had also accepted a certification, making them one of the few police departments in the state to be recertified at a very high level. We're very proud of our partnership. Mr. Isola has worked very hard with Chief Kudrick to develop and build a prototype SL3 program that I think is serving as a model for the rest of the state. And we were very, very proud to see our officers sworn in. They've already been on the job, but they were officially sworn in by the mayor last night. And again, it's a fine example of the continued partnership between ourselves, the police department, and our partners at Town Hall. So we're very excited about that. And as we see tonight, it's very comprehensive. There's a lot of different efforts going together, a lot of collaboration across the district in many ways, many levels, using both technology and skilled personnel to work for the safety and security of our children and to help them in terms of realizing their potential. So again, a very good night last night. I thank each board member that was there with me, and I think some of them were actually, I think Ms. Mangano, your daughter was interviewing the mayor, right, for high school projects. So I saw a lot of tenacious drive there. They wouldn't believe it if they were not hearing. Well, that's good. They did great. So again, thank you everybody for attending, and Mr. Moretti, thank you for your leadership on the safety committee in terms of helping us with that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Wong.
Thank you. The Education Committee met on October 16th. The ESSA job title revisions, which is on this current agenda, formerly known as No Child Left Behind. Pretty much the ESSA, teacher coach for mathematics, and the instructional assistant. There are really no changes to the job description, just changed because the name of the law changed. And so that motion's on the agenda. Curriculum updates, World Language and Fine Arts. The World Language and Fine Arts supervisors attended the meeting and presented a hands-on experience as it appears in the classroom of the recently revised curriculum. I really like how Mr. Preston has, when he brings things in, they teach us like we're the students. And so this particular one, I'm going to hold it for a surprise. This fine arts activity. It is? Okay, so they'll see it. We're going to do it at our retreat, we have an next retreat. So it's a very, yeah. So they've seen it on Twitter. We already heard about our student assessment data. QSAC statement of insurance is on the board, on the agenda for the board to be approved. And we talked about the updates, student board day, suggested revisions. The social supervisor was there, and he talked about, he had the input from the students, and it was really good input. Their evaluations, we got a chance to read those, and we'll make sure that we incorporate some of their suggestions from their written evaluation. And then we did table our personalized learning plan. As always, we get to such very good, rich discussions, and that is too important to minimize. Probably maybe one topic agenda that was there. And we did leave as our open item, and we didn't discuss it. That's the Robotics Engineering Club, and so we'll be updated once all the information is presented. And our minutes were also approved, the August 21st minutes, and our next meeting will be scheduled sometime in October.
I had a question that I was going to bring to the Education Committee. I, however, could not make the meeting on Monday. With your permission, may I ask a question now? Okay. As far as, it was mentioned earlier today, which kind of makes it even more timely, but the policy change from homework to home learning, I'm just wondering what kind of practical applications are being applied in the buildings, in the classrooms, because back to school nights just happened. And I know every single teacher had a slide on her PowerPoint, his or her PowerPoint, that said their homework policy. And, people are still referring to it as homework. So I'm just wondering, this was last year that we made the policy change. I'm just wondering if there's been any practical applications to actually change that linguistics in the classrooms and so on.
So, thank you. It's always a difficult change. First, thank you for acknowledging the fact that it's one of the hardest things to do is to change our language, especially language that is, quite nearly a century old in terms of the term homework. There was an opportunity to do that, and it was timely to do that within the policy, but to just then go in and strike through that one piece misses a large bundle of the rest of the work. So the practical applications of those changes, the actual implementation of those changes correctly, is wrapped in the work that we do personalized learning. So those 5 elements begin to speak to that and shifting the mindset around what that learning environment is overall. So, point blank, no, we have not walked that into each and every classroom to start talking about sort of saying, call it this, not that. Because then what we're doing is just demanding a language change as opposed to shifting the culture and the thinking around what that is. So you are right in bringing up that it is a slow shift, and at times a painfully slow shift. But I would also just like to counterpoint that we've had epically large shifts in other areas of thinking that will begin to incorporate that. So. And I think, you know, that's a great topic to come back to, in terms of the education committee and what we're doing with that front specifically.
That's perfect. No,
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Just to, say that it's something to bring back. I'm thinking, we're both thinking in that conversation, the school board's meeting, the presentation was pretty thorough, and they made some structural changes, like changing the percentage of capture for the township, some structural changes, so it's a really good question and a good follow-up later for the guidance and that conversation. Absolutely.
Mr. Bongiovanni.
Community interaction met last night. I'm going to kind of go in reverse order in terms of things that happened there. As always, we always end the meeting by saying, is there anything specifically that you want to talk about or do you have a concern about that you want brought back to the board? There was a question about HIV. That seems to be the word of the night. And based on that, I did ask Mr. Azzola to make sure that was the key point for our next meeting, which I believe will be in November. The other things that came up were the consent agenda. If you remember, Mr. Miller had brought to us a copy. Let's check one test there. Had brought to us a copy of a statement that was used by another district. We had looked at that here at this board, had sent it back to community interaction to discuss it, and it was shown last night to the group who was there. We had a healthy discussion about it and reworded it a little bit. Mr. O'Brien and I had also had the opportunity earlier in the day, along with Mr. Azzola, to tweak it a little bit. And for the benefit of the public who's here, if you don't mind, I'll read it. It's short. Statement to the public. The Howell Township Board of Education operates in a robust committee structure. Agenda items have been presented and evaluated in the committee format or vetted administratively prior to the superintendent making the recommendation to the Board of Education. In the committee process and subsequently, the members of the board work with the administration and the superintendent of schools to assure that they fully understand the matter. In rare instances, matters are presented to the Board of Education for broader discussion at the same meeting where final action may be taken. And we thought this was a good statement. It was trying to put a good positive spin on it. It was we think it's pretty clear in terms of explaining the fact that for somebody, and again, for anybody who's sitting here or watching this on TV who's not familiar with why this came up, we don't ever want anybody to come to a meeting or to view a meeting and say, well, wait a minute, you hit the consent agenda, all of a sudden here's 70 items that you voted on, and when did you talk about them? We've always talked about it. Everything has been vetted in the appropriate committees and has frequently been shared amongst board members so that we don't enter into this blind when we do this. So this was a statement. The committee did like it. In fact, we even then showed it very briefly to the President's Council, which follows. I'll address that in a few minutes. But I passed this out just to say, how do you feel about it? The committee seemed to like this and wanted to be brought to the board. So, questions, comments?
We also have it on the screen.
Yes.
So basically, we have on the table before us a statement that is proposed to be added to our agenda. Is that correct? As an explanatory paragraph? Okay. So then what I would need moving forward is to have a motion to have that done. Discussion.
I move it.
Okay.
I second.
All right, moved by Mr. Miller, seconded by Dr. Lowe. All right, the motion on the table. Any discussion on the paragraph?
Just the last piece of discussion. I really applaud Mr. Miller for bringing this to us to begin with. I think it's an important piece of it.
I just wanted to say that I really like how this came out from where the one that I brought definitely didn't fit for our board, but the way that the administration and community interaction we did this, I really think this is something that's important that really needs to be placed on our agenda because the community doesn't know exactly what we do sometimes, and we need to be as transparent as we can. to the community. So I am really glad that we would put something like this on our agenda.
Any further comments on it? Yes.
Well, I'd say something that is obvious to all of us here, and if someone watches the whole board meeting, so much of what goes on is discussed when committee reports are given. And so, again, if someone looked at this, they might not realize that. If they followed the whole board meeting, they would see that these committees reports are given with, with great detail and exploration. So, again, this may be something someone may look at, but it's important that they realize that maybe it helps to follow the meetings, watch them. This is live right now, and it's being recorded. They can follow it and see what's going on. Even if they, as opposed to simply saying, well, here a board had a consent agenda and handled 70 items. So it's not that the statement needs to be changed, but it's just, again, for people to realize you want to know more and see what's going on and see how it's been vetted. Listen to the superintendent's report, listen to the board president's report, listen to the committee reports, and follow the board meetings.
So you bring up a good point, Mr. Chairman. If I might, a simple sentence inserted in the second to last line might be, committees then make full reports to, committee chairs then make full reports to the board, for, prior to action being taken. Fair enough? That might add to what you're saying. Not that we want to, it's a great, I agree with Mr. Miller, it's a great statement, but in respect to Mr. German's comments about, completing the process, I think adding that line might be helpful. Would that be fair to take that back and maybe add it in? Who would assign that to? I guess Mr. Bongiovanni?
I don't.
Yeah, draft language, and then just add that one sentence that illustrates the point of the committee. Oh, we just did? Well, just put it in.
So it's just
Sorry, never mind. Never mind, revise our...
Committee chairs then make full reports to the board?
Yeah, to the board prior to action being taken. There you go. Wow, that's good. I like it.
We are digitally,
Yeah. I could use that during the day at work.
Add that to the agenda.
I think we'd have to amend the motion or something like that.
Well,
yeah.
okay, so amended motion on the table. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Can we attach that as an addendum? Yes, very good. Thank you.
A couple of other things at committee last night. Mr. Izzola shared with us the conversation he's had going out for a while in terms of and really has developed partially from our last retreats, but we've talked about Facebook and social media and how this district chooses to share its information. I think at this point, I'll probably turn it right over to Mr. Izzola, let him explain his feeling behind Facebook.
Well, I'm going to leave my feeling about Facebook out.
Your feeling about how you would like to
I certainly provide my
go ahead.
My hope for this district's ethics.
I know what you mean.
Clearly communicate with our community. So Facebook has been something that but many boards prior to this board and the current administration, previous administration have grappled with in terms of is it an appropriate way to push information out and worried about comments and worried about potential threats and worried about a lot of different things. At the end of the day, I come after deep conversations with our leadership team and board members and community interaction, sharing it out there, PTO and PTA presidents and getting feedback from them, that's where our parent community lives. I do really wonderful messaging through Twitter, and our school district is very active on Twitter, but that's really a professional forum, kind of educators go to Twitter to find out about education and sharing, and folks that are truly invested in the activities of the school district. But in terms of pushing mass information out to a large group of people at one time, our parent community, Facebook is a clearly better venue to do that. So with that statement, I am certainly ready to rip the Band-Aid off and say it's time for us to get into the deep end of the pool with this, because it could be a powerful way of messaging. Ironically, today at Monmouth University, I was at a presentation and I had the opportunity to speak with Dr. Salvatore from Long Branch Public Schools, and I had raised it, we were talking about social media actually came up, and I raised the question, and he came over and said, you know, Joe, I can remember speaking to Dr. Golden about that, you know, because Long Branch has been doing it for quite some time. 22,000 views a week on their Facebook, he told me. That's a great opportunity. And he says it's growing, it's international, but the majority of it is local. So, I mean, that's just a great opportunity, and I think it's time that, and I know the board's interested in it, we've talked about it as a board, as a team, so we're going to do that. My last hurdle is Miss Agnew. She wants me to wait till we launch our new website. We're updating our website to ensure ADA compliability and other aspects of that. And her thought process as our Director of Innovation and Digital Learning is to launch an entire platform together, inclusive of that. That will happen later this year, so it just matters timing. So I'm reporting to the board that we will be utilizing Facebook, but now it will come into the timing of our relaunch of Facebook. We actually have a Facebook account, by the way, but we're going to put some energy. With that, the one criteria, and community, Mr. Bongiovanni and Mr. O'Brien have spoken to that. We spoke about it as a board, and there's two things that I think are essential to being a Facebook district. A, it's got to be current. You just can't sit there and be dormant, right? Because then we're not really communicating well with our folks. We have to be making sure we're updating that on a regular basis. We're pushing our tweets to that are appropriate to go to that forum. We're providing information to our community. We're celebrating the work that's happening in the district, and it's meaningful and it's timely. The second factor is it does need to be monitored because there is a two-way thing built into Facebook that is, people say you can block comments, you can't. You know, I haven't seen it. I've spoken to many school districts. There's ways to hide. There's different things you can do to restrict the dialogue, but it still exists. And if we're going to have an advanced thing, we're going to need monitoring of that. So one of the things is, and it's got to be done on Saturday and Sunday, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and at 6 o'clock in the morning, and at 10 o'clock at night. So one of the things we'd like to do is assign that duty to someone and perhaps provide a small stipend for their weekend hours that they would accumulate. Nothing astonishing. I'd like to develop a kind of a punch list of items, maybe not quite a job description, but a responsibility list, and then kind of quantify that and, look at assigning that to someone who can then also help with, we don't have a communication office. The school districts aren't allowed to have communication offices other than 50% or less. You can't have someone's whole job being that, but this person can also help in synthesizing the information, getting it out there, getting videos from, for example, the close-up classroom piece that segments come out, get that on Facebook and do those things. There will be time consumption. Will it be overwhelming? No, but I think it would be fair to get one of our talented folks within the district and provide them an opportunity to be responsible for making sure it's current. My messages are getting out, and that we're doing that. So that was kind of the one, I don't want to say caveat, but the one hope I had we can do. Yes, Mr.
Yeah, as a parent, a member of the Middle School North Facebook page, other things I see, and as I was with Ardina, you get a lot of information. There's a lot of stuff coming out of those, the PTA. It's great. You see a lot of stuff that you might miss otherwise because it comes right to your phone, comes right to your laptop, your iPad. So it is a great way to disseminate information that's important to our community. And I think it makes sense to have someone monitor it, for terms of service, make sure that it's, that the forum is kept intent for what it's intended, good communication between us and the community.
It was discussed at the committee meeting yesterday, and there was a robust discussion there too about it, and they all agreed to it. And speaking to your point in terms of the monitoring of different times of day and weekends, I mean, we just recently had the perfect example, with the water main break in front of Newberry School, that if you're a parent and all of a sudden you're looking out your window and you're seeing in front of the school all these trucks and lights, and this is going on at 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, and throughout the night, you know, you might want to quickly go to Facebook to say, hey, what's the situation? And, you know, that would have been a perfect opportunity, you know, 10 o'clock at night for whoever is the monitor to jump on real quickly and say where the situation is being handled. You know, look back in the morning for updates if need be. So it really is the way to reach out to the community at this time. And again, I constantly use the word community because it's not just the parents. We do want to make sure that we're providing a source so that community members here who do not have children in the schools are still being able to be kept abreast of what's happening in our wonderful district. And the last thing then, and you saw that we kind of started at two ends of the table here. This traces back to our retreat where we talked about the future rebranding and a logo someday. You know, for so many years now, Mr. Sanizak, help me out. How many years have we used the tree and the shrub? Approximately. Forever. Forever. And maybe it is time to start looking at whether we wanted to rebrand. And this was a healthy discussion at our last retreat. And I think the best part about it was that it was the student voices who were the loudest voices. Mr. Isola is putting up there for the benefit of anybody who's in the audience tonight, one of the diagrams that came out, and again, this was a student-led activity in terms of what would today's logo look like, who are we actually speaking to, and what does it mean to students, what does it mean to parents. Based on that drawing and based on some of the other conversations, I'd ask you to start passing that shirt around so that the board members could have a look at it. These were two different ideas growing out of that example. Certainly not a final one. It's up to this board to tweak it, to continue to look at it, to see what else might want to be done. I will tell you that at community relations, some of the comments were, there were people who really liked the one on the right as you look at it on that board with the heavy roots, that it talks about the roots of the community. There were other people that liked the one to the left because it showed the children and recognized the fact that we all kind of lean on each other and not just, again, you know, students leaning on students, students leaning on staff. There was a comment made that maybe even blending the two, taking the roots from the one on the right and making that come out of the trunk, the body on the left. So again, these were just examples. Please understand, again, we talked about this last night, that because one is on a black shirt, one is on a white shirt, it stands out a little bit more. You know, but look at the emblem itself and not the color combination. So these were ideas to come out of the committee. They really came out of administration and really came out of the student voices at the retreat, which is one of the things I think was the best part of it. So, Mr. Isola, I'm sure you want to make some comments.
Sure. If I may just echo briefly, and not to be redundant, but to help, clarify some of my thought processes as we bring this forward. We had talked about future branding, and it may be seen like a big conversation about a logo, but the reality is I think that it is representative of imaging, and imaging is important and communicating who we want to be. And when we went through the activity with the children during our retreat, I thought that was really a great activity of imaging and capturing, and I think it was Mr. Moretti's group that actually did this particular drawing that kind of won the day. One piece of feedback that we received, was that right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, all right. So one of the feedbacks one of the information that we received last night, I thought was pretty spot on. You know, oftentimes, and I'm going to say this, and I don't know why I'm going to walk this path, but here I go. Oftentimes, let the kids do a logo contest. This is not about a logo contest for me. This is about the district's imaging, and it was brought to light by a parent at the meeting, not as a committee member, but a parent that said, well, Mr. Isola, what's the use of this? So I said, well, it's going to perhaps be on our letterhead, the logo on our website, perhaps some attire. If we want, I very proudly would love to represent the district in venues and things of that nature, business cards, whatever it may be, on our board agendas, and just so her response was then, the kids are gonna be less concerned about it. Because they want to be a Cobra or a Hornet or a Bulldog. They're more interested in who their school mascot is. So they're going to be pleased. You don't need to take care of the children. And I said, that's great, but it was important to the administration and the board that their voice was part of the imaging and the shaping of what we wanted to represent. I was not a fan of the tree until that day, to be honest. So it was really good that we took the opportunity to work side by side with our children to come up with something. I really think these two logos are fine examples. The last thing I want to say, I am in favor of failing forward on this, meaning that we could start to move in this logo's direction, but not memorialize or finalize it, and continue to look at it and explore different things. But we can start to, get this out there a little bit and see what we think about it, kind of try it on for size. And both literally and figuratively, perhaps. And then from that point, say, well, it really does have your voice. We got good feedback from it. Kind of pilot it a little bit. I'm not opposed to that either. I'm not opposed to saying, I saw you crazy, go back to the drawing board, you missed it. So I'm open for feedback. We did share it out. It went well last night. I felt good about that, and certainly want to share the follow through with the board.
I just want to say that, talking about the student, 3 of those terms up there was from the student. He was very into it. He really was really into it. And he had made about 2 or 3 suggestions, about 4 or 5 suggestions, and we selected 3 of his words. He was very, very into the process.
Yes.
So I think we did have this conversation, Mr. Isola, you and I. And as I said, they're both nice. They really are. And it was your committee that did it. So, and it's certainly not a conversation I really have today, but I'm just more of the mindset of plan your work and work your plan. And like, a strategic, you build up, and what comes of it comes from that larger picture, just from my, background. So that's pretty much it. I mean, I guess, we have another 2 years for the strategic plan, but I guess, and I like them both, but what's the substance of it? What does it mean? Where's the inclusiveness of it? And so, like I said, it's not a fail forward, but just that for me is like missing. So and that's just from my own personal experiences. But I like them. I mean, I like both of them. And so that's what I would just say. That's all. Just a comment.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Miller.
I kind of like the idea with putting the roots into the one where you have the teacher or the student holding each other up. I like that one, and I think the roots for the community is very important. So I do like that idea of combining those two.
As we go, the old logo had the verbiage, can someone read the old logo? Not the picture behind you, but yeah, right, exactly. And obviously, that was appropriate in the time that we were coming up, but as you pointed out, and as we've seen in tonight's meeting and with everything going on, we're not the same district we were. We built off of a great foundation, but now we're at a different place. So as we move forward, the image is important and the language is important. So, both need to reflect where we've come to and who we are now.
And I think to Dr. Lowe's point, the slogan, if I may, I think does get born from that broader work. The current tree and shrub that stand side by side that have stood here for a long time and, proudly represented an image of Howell Township, if it said commitment to excellence next to that, it wouldn't matter. So the slogan and the logo itself, they become connected, but they also they kind of stand alone. So in terms of, and we're future ready, we're digital, we're this, we're that. I don't think that logo is representative of this school district's personality. And that's why there was conversation around the logo, but I certainly recognize Dr. Lowe and have great respect for her remarks in terms of, going through the strategic plan and maybe something could get born from that. But again, I think that's where perhaps when we visit, does that, proud of our schools, concern for our children, does that still represent, or do we want to enhance that, or change that, or keep that? I think that's a great forum for that portion of the future branding. And it, you know, it could be a long process. It could be a process that takes time. It's important. So I'm not, again, and again, just my, it's not close, it's just my opinion. So that's where I think we could kind of marry those two things together.
Building off something Dr. Lowe said, I mean, and certainly words matter. We all have the agenda up in front of us right now on our laptops. If you look at it, it's interesting that slogan, there's a smaller font than we use for the actual wording of the agenda. I mean, if words do matter, then maybe it should be hidden in that little line. Maybe it's something to, you know, whether it's on the shirts or whether it's on the letterhead, wherever, but, you know, it's something that could be expanded on and prominently displayed.
Well, at the end of the day, for this particular purpose, are we recommending any action to be taken by law?
Feedback, I think.
Feedback more? Okay. Fine, so then perhaps the board can, you know, submit feedback back, you know, on the logos and on the language and everything else, and we can continue to have that discussion. And certainly as we go forward into 2018, we want to, as you said, I'd highly encourage you, let's take a stance and move forward and be not afraid to fail forward. We have to, we'll get it right. It'll evolve.
Last item just is, as the liaison to the President's Council, after community interaction ends, the presidents come in from the different PTOs, and they're nice enough to invite Mr. Arzola and myself as the liaison to stay for the beginning of their meeting. Basically, Mr. Arzola gives an update, which he gave last night. Some of the same things that were shown to you tonight and talked about were mentioned to them last night. We have positive feedback from them. As always, you know, before we're dismissed, I don't want to use that in a negative term, but after we're allowed to leave, you know, I always say, look, is there anything you would like me to bring back to the board? And there were no questions or comments from the presidents last night, but I make a point of always asking that before we leave. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Miller.
The Finance Committee met on October 12th. Mrs. Stanisak gave an overview of the ESIP programs and the energy conservation measures involved for each school. The committee discussed continuing to pursue MCIA financing to take advantage of the AAA rating. Optimum timeline would be to issue it in conjunction with other districts in February. However, the RFP for the solar portion of the ESIP will be issued in the near future, hopefully within the next 2 weeks. The committee also discussed briefly the election and the uncertainty of state aid figures. And of course, this could have some type of effect as we're building our budget without us knowing our state aid, if we're going to gain or lose any type of money. Ms. Stanisak also shared with the committee that the transfers have to be done a new way now to comply with ESSA. And instead of it being drilled down just to the district level, he actually now has to drill it down to the school level. Mr. Stanisak, you want to, did I do that?
Yeah, exactly. We have to disaggregate every account to all 12 schools for the federal ESSA regulations. So you'll see the transfers are much thicker now because there's 12 accounts for everyone.
And so the committee did review the proposed transfers and those numerous pages in our backup that are now showing that down to the school level. And they are recommending the approval of these transfers to the board. It's on the agenda this evening. The next Monmouth County School Board meeting will be on November 6th at Coats Neck Inn. Dinner begins at 6, followed by the meeting at 6:45. Last week I did attend with Mr. Garman and Mr. Sanchez the Ocean County meeting, and their topic was special education. And they gave a lot of information. They had a parent advocate there and an attorney also for the other side, and they spoke about IEP meetings and 504s and all that stuff. So it was really a great presentation. And as we know, next week we are down in Atlantic City, so I am encouraging the board members and administration to come to the Monmouth County Chapter on Monday from 3:03 at from 1 to 4. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller, you know, at some point, it may not seem directly related right now, but tax reform's on the agenda at the federal level, and there's going to be impacts that will be extremely significant to New Jersey and other states like New Jersey, especially around property taxes and state income taxes and that type of thing. So I would like to ask, with permission of the board, if our liaisons could reach out to school boards at both the national and state level and see whether or not there's anyone taking a look at what that potential impact would do to our states in terms of budgeting and everything else. I think there has to be, I mean, we're a little early in the process yet, but I think it will have a potential impact on us in the next couple of years. What that is, I can't say, but I think it would be helpful if we get the organizations that support us to give us some feedback on what they're seeing or at least start looking at it. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Ms. Mallon.
Operations did not meet since the last meeting, but an opportunity was presented to us, and Mr. Sanisak, I believe all of you received the information about this very exciting opportunity with the VOTEC schools. And it's on the agenda tonight. He spoke to me about it. I'm completely supportive of this. Working with the VOTEC schools to have 2 apprentice mechanics come work in our garage for the school year. It will help them and helps us. It's a win-win for everyone. So I hope I get the rest of the board's support on those 2. If you'd like to expound on that at all, Mr. Sanders.
I think you said it well. We're looking forward to participating, helping them gain skills. They've been in the program. They're seniors, so they've been in the program for 3 years and 2 months now, and they will be supervised at all times. But I think it'd be a great addition and partnership with our VOTEC county partner.
That would be all.
Could I say something on that? Also, that goes into the new programs that are out there going into the trades. Our focus has always been college. And over the years, we've lost our trade people. We don't have electricians, we don't have plumbers, so what they're trying to do right now is they're trying to move into the trades, get more people, and this fits right perfect into that new focus.
I read a statistic that the average income for people completing apprenticeships is over $60,000 a year. And when you come into it, there is high demand. Anyone's ever had to take their car in for service to a dealership, try to get an appointment? There's a shortage of skilled mechanics, and those folks, I think the labor cost I was quoted on work was $145 an hour for labor. So when you think about that, if you can demand $145 an hour for labor, that means that your skills are at a high premium. So it's something to think about for our students as an alternative track. Yes?
No, and Jim, you say the focus, or Moretti, I'm sorry. The focus is on college, but it's college and career ready. And, the role of high schools, and we forget the end career because focusing on the other part, but it's college and career ready. So I was just really excited. It's a better win-win.
I'm glad to see we're getting with that.
And when, you've already, when would these 2 gentlemen be starting if we approve this evening?
They have to go through the physical and a urine test. And as soon as those are back, they will be offered the hours. They have to coordinate it with their supervisor. They work 4 half days, and then they're in school they go to school till 10 a.m. 4 days of the week, and then the other day they're in. So we'll have to adjust their hours, but we'll get them in as soon as the results are back. And I think it's 3 days. So it'll be soon. It'll be while we're in AC.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. I believe that concludes our reports.
Thank you. It is time for the consent agenda, sir.
Need a motion?
Move it.
Second by Mr. Moretti.
Okay, and please allow me to...
Can we take the agenda as well?
The agenda and the addenda, and I will read in 2 new motions to the addenda, but first, reading in 3004, and you have this in front of you, but I will read it for the record. 3004, please insert the name Samantha, common spelling, Vigna, V-I-G-N-A. Step 1, BA, 52,000, effective October 23rd. And in 3006, please insert the name Joseph Hackett, common spelling, and Hackett, Hackett. On 4003, please insert the name Jennifer, common spelling, Wishnick, Wishnick, pending, please add pending criminal history to the end. Pulled item 3000-5 from the agenda. On the addenda, we are bringing out of exec A4, approve the settlement agreement between RH and NH on behalf of BH, between them and the Howell Township Board of Ed, and A5, the statement for the agenda. With that, sir, may I take it around? And that was moved by Ms. Mallon and
Seconded by Mr. Moretti.
seconded by Mr. Moretti. Thank you. Mrs. Mallon.
Yes.
Mr. Moretti.
Yes.
Mr. Gurman.
Yes.
Dr. Love.
Yes.
Mrs. Mangano.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Sanchez.
Yes.
Mr. Bongiovanni.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda and the 5-item addenda are approved with the readings and poll noted for the record. It is now time for the second public comment, sir.
Open the floor.
Whereas the Howell Township Board of Ed establishes that public comments may last 45 minutes, and those comments will be conducted in accordance with its bylaw 0164.1, and the officer with respect to time and decorum will be the President of the Board, Mr. Timothy O'Brien. May the floor be open. Are there comments at this time? Seeing none, may the floor be closed.
Yes.
Before you act for the motion, and Ms. Mallon makes it.
I'm ready.
One final report, the Yankees won.
Yeah.